Welcome to Try Not to Overthink It, where we explore the intricate landscape of mental health, well-being, and everyday life. I'm RJ.
I'm Khalil.
Join us as we dive into insightful conversations, share expert perspectives, and personal stories that shed light on the various dimensions of mental wellness. Whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or deeper understanding of the human mind, this podcast is your safe space to engage, learn, and navigate the journey to a happier, healthier self. If you're new to the channel, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification button so you do not miss any upcoming content. So today we are going to be unpacking the topic of how presentation matters. Here goes Khalil with this Washington Commanders
First presentation.
Watch. Oh my gosh.
Upset, beat Detroit, but it wasn't an upset. We just played football and they didn't think we could do it.
Oh my gosh.
That's all it is. We play football. Bunch of dogs.
Yeah. So, segue aside, we're going to talk about why presentation matters. So this topic came about because Khalil and I are both avid sports fans. And so if you've been following the sports stratosphere in the past couple weeks or so, you've seen the whole situation with Joy Taylor and the lawsuit against, I believe it's Fox Sports 1 or Fox, one of the two. Basically, about certain things being alleged that Joy Taylor and another executive and Skip Bayless all were allegedly doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, along with some other people being wrangled in there too, in regards to inappropriate behavior in the workplace. So I thought it was important for us to kind of unpack this, unpack this particular topic, because I think that especially for a lot of us, I think that for a lot of us, we do not understand the presentation piece, right. How presentation impacts our, how the world views us, how the world interacts with us, how the world treats us, how the world talks about us, how certain doors can be opened, certain doors can be closed based off of presentation. Me being an artist, I'm big on presentation. I will redo something 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times until the presentation is correct, because a lot of us, a first impression is formed very quickly. And when you take the time to cultivate a very good first impression, that tends to lay the groundwork for other opportunities that may come down the line, versus you just slap something together, or you look some kind of way, and then people tend to treat you the way that you tend to look. So if you look, throw it away, people are going to treat you, throw it away. So I thought it was very important for us as providers to kind of unpack this topic and kind of deep dive into it and speak to our younger audience, because for myself and Khalil, we're older. I'm almost 40. Khalil's in his 40s. These are lessons that, I had to learn. My parents poured into me. And so I thought it was important for us to kind of unpack that topic today. So what do you think, Khalil?
Yes, sir. And I fully agree. One of the most, captivating things when we go back to the Commanders is we're starting to see this just transformation of Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner from 2023. And it's kind of amazing because we look at him and everybody, from Tom Brady to all ESPN to all the different announcers, like, he's so poised and he's just so calm in the face of adversity and he's just not running around. He's not jumping in people's faces. He's not screaming. He's showing you, all right, better than he's going to tell you. He's going to show you what he's going to do on the field, right? And when you talk to his parents, his mom is always there supporting him. And you see he comes from a background of people who obviously knew the benefits of staying present, right? Being mindful in the moment, right? Your presentation. If I present myself as somebody who's anxious, somebody who's irritable, somebody who's angry all the time, and we've seen that in plenty of NFL players, then guess what? You get labeled. You get labeled. And sometimes these labels follow you for the rest of your life. And those are the things that you're seeing Jaden Daniels stay away from, right? He presents himself the right way. He says the right things, right? He does the right things. And those, especially me being in my 40s, I grew up watching football players and watching other sports heroes and watching Charles Barkley say, "I'm not a role model." And then, they're making a commercial out of it, right? But even when we talk about joy and some of the things, because you got to put that in context. When we start reading some of the things that the young lady claimed, the hairdresser claimed she told her, right? We got to start looking at some of these things, right? It's a dog eat dog world out there.
Uh-huh.
You got to get ahead by any means necessary when you're in the entertainment business. You're matter of fact, when you're a businessman or woman, period. All right, it's a dog eat dog, right? It's how you get the leg up, the advantage, right? And I'm gonna bring it back to sports in a minute. That mentality that people have, right? It can be seen in all facets of life. It's not just, oh, people who are celebrities or people who are CEOs or people. Man, I was working retail and I seen it. You know, people will try to get over you the best way they can. And to me, you know, that shows your character and who you are. And so when we go back to that story about Joy and some of the things that happen, right? That mentality is being pushed by our society. And like I said, it's everywhere. And you know, it's not just, oh, this is just one incident. No, we see it all the time. We see it all the time. Whether it be ESPN, whether it be some you know, Hollywood mogul who makes movies, whether it be P Diddy, we see it. People take advantage of that power dynamic, that power structure, right? And to me, it's like, hey, when are we gonna try to start to recognize that that's not the way to do things in the long run? How you present yourself. If I present myself as someone who's you know, a kind-hearted, good person who wants to see everybody do good, but then behind a closed door, I'm berating people, cursing people out. I'm making shady deals. I'm video recording people doing stuff negative so I can use it over their head later on, right? Those are things that we're acquainted with in this world that we live in. And I don't want to get too spiritual, but back to the sports concept and how we see different players and teams and stuff like that, who constantly are in trouble. They're constantly, you know, surrounded by chaos. Well, it's your presentation.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, the thing about it though is like with the Joy Taylor situation, it's all alleged. So I mean, you can't.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know if it's true or not. The thing about it though is like, you know, like Khalil and I were having this conversation offline, was that there, you know, when people are able, you know, because there's been several people that have worked in that circle of people who have come out and said, this was stuff that was a rumor. This was stuff that, you know, I had heard about, people had been whispering about, people had been talking about for a while. Now certain things are kind of, certain dots are starting to connect and certain things are starting to make sense. And, you know, like Khalil and I were having a conversation, when your name is not attached to foolishness and BS and fuckery, guess what? It's very hard for people to formulate rumors about you, because people would not even give it life, because they're gonna be like, that's not even part of that person's character.
Of course.
You know, prime example for me, right? You know, the company that, you know, I was working for back in the day, I had a coworker, you know, make up a lie and say, hey, I jumped up in her face. I was yelling, I was screaming at her, I was cursing her out. And, you know, so I got disciplined for it, whatever. And so her own employees was telling her, like, you're lying. We know you lie, because RJ don't do that. You know, RJ, I ain't never heard RJ get loud before. I've never heard RJ talk to somebody like that before. So for you to say that he did that, I don't even believe he did that. People weren't even willing to give it life because of the way I present myself, the way I carry myself, the energy I put out in the world. People were not willing to give certain things life. And when you think of your presentation, your value, what your name represents, your brand represents, that's very imperative that you are moving in something that is in line with what you are wanting your brand to represent. When you look at yourself like a brand like Nike, Adidas, iPhone, Google, you know, big name brands, you know, you notice that they're never attached to drama. You notice they're never attached to bullshit. You know, they're never attached to foolishness, to negativity. And the reason why is because, again, the brand is bigger than any individual person.
Right.
So when you view yourself as a brand, you see yourself as a brand, there are certain things you don't want your brand attached to. There are certain things you don't want your brand associated with. There are certain things, there are certain conversations you don't want your brand being brought up in. So when you see yourself as a brand, you operate as a brand, you move as a brand, you are less likely to find yourself attached to bullshit, attached to fuckery, attached to negativity, attached to drama. And so with this particular situation with Joy, Skip, the executive, this person, that person, do I think that these things happen? I don't know. I wasn't there.
Right.
I wasn't there. I didn't witness it. But when you are moving in a space or you are operating in a space where things can be left open to interpretation, you can't be surprised by the results that you get.
Right.
You know, when you're having to explain this ain't what it looked like, you are already moving in a space that's very dangerous.
Right. As soon as you have to start making explanations for your behavior, right, you know you're in trouble.
Or why someone's someplace that they shouldn't be, or why someone's a little too close to you, why you're laughing too much, or you're spending too much time with somebody, or when you're having to explain something, you already done messed up.
Right. You know, it's funny that you brought up brand. Me and my sister were talking about this. Nordstrom has a particular positive respect when it comes to the brand, right? Because it's a long time business has been running. One of their main things that they pride themselves on is no matter what happened to the product, no matter when you bought the product, they will allow you to return it. And it keeps them out of a lot of conflict. All right. And I'm not talking about Nordstrom Rack. I'm talking about Nordstrom, the store itself, right? It keeps them out of conflict because no matter, everything in there is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can go buy some hand towels, you can buy a napkin, you know, whatever it is. Sometimes a T-shirt, and it's probably going to be over $50. There's going to be nothing in there under $50. Everything's going to be $100 and over. They would rather give you your $50, $100, $200, $300, whatever it is. They'd rather give you that than have you discredit their name.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think people need to think about that sometimes. You know, why would I want to be dragged into drama or associated with some maladaptive behavior? Yeah, the sales associate was yelling at me, doing this, doing that. They don't want any of that. So they say, hey, it's cheaper to just give you your little chump change back because we're making billions of dollars. You know, every time we turn around, right? You can have that. So sometimes it just baffles me when you have people in these positions where they're making all this money, they're on TV, and then you start to see some things where, I mean, I'm a human, I have flaws, right? But certain things you should have learned coming up, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I brought up Jaden Daniels earlier, because like, I don't want to be associated with negative things. I don't want to be associated with when anytime people question my character, I don't want people to have to scratch their head. Maybe he did this.
Yeah.
He might have done that, man.
and see, I'm glad you said that. I mean, like, for a lot of people, you know, people don't take that into account when they think about presentation. Positive presentation inspires trust and inspires confidence.
Yep.
When you think of certain, we'll use cars, for example. When you think of certain automotive manufacturers, you think of this car lasts for a very long time. Right. Because the presentation is always together. You think of Ford's lasting for a very long time. Toyota's lasting for a very long time. Honda's lasting for a very long time. Yep. Because the presentation is always there. You never see the brand, as I said, being attached to negativity or bullshit. You always see it attached to this car lasts for a very long time. So, hey, people are willing to go spend money on purchasing a Ford, a Honda, or a Toyota because they last for a very long time. Because there has been trust and confidence that has been built through a positive presentation. And for a lot of us, we tend to forget that. We tend to forget that when we're just moving. We're moving, and I had to learn this myself as I started to get older. Was that when you are moving in life, you have to be very cognizant of how you're viewed. You have to be very cognizant of what circles you find yourself in. Because a lot of times it may not be you. It may be the people around you who are into the bullshit. But because you are attached to them, you are with them, you are hanging out with them, like the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together.
Right.
So the thought process is you're into the same shit they're into because you're hanging out with their ass. So murderers don't hang out with non-murderers. So that's the thought process. And as I said before, when you view yourself as that brand, as that premier brand, that you want to, you have to take an inventory of what you want your name to represent, what you want your face to represent. Because as I said in previous episodes on this podcast, you don't just represent yourself. Your name represents your entire tribe, your entire clan, your entire family. It doesn't just represent you. And so you were able to open certain doors for family members behind you, like a younger brother, a younger sister, a niece, a nephew, a cousin, because you operate at a certain level of integrity, certain level of morals and values and character, just a certain level of honesty. You are establishing that you can be trusted and that people can take you at your word. And nah, he ain't that way. That's not get
right.
out of here.
He wouldn't do that.
He wouldn't do that. But
and
when
they'll
you
protect you before you have to jump out there and say, nah, that wasn't me. Nah, you don't have to do any of that. They will protect you.
People will protect you because they know you. Because you see that now, like with like when Jay-Z was facing whatever allegations he was facing from somebody who was saying that something happened between them. You had people like Stephen A. Smith. I've known him for 20 plus years. I've never seen him do that stuff.
Right.
And you saw Stephen A. Smith say the same thing about Skip Bayless. I've known him for this amount of time. He eats the same thing for lunch every day. Him offering somebody $1.5 million, he won't even let somebody borrow $15.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have, as I said, when you move a certain way, like Khalil's alluding to, other people will defend you because, again, you've established to them who you are and what your presentation is. Now, conversely, as I said before, how you present yourself, what your packaging looks like is going to determine how people view you. It's going to determine how people treat you. It's going to determine how people talk about you, how people think about you, how people interact with you. It's going to do that. Point in case, me, my sister, and my niece, we like to watch cooking shows. Rather they be bacon challenges or like Iron Chef or things like that. And so when you have Chef Gordon Ramsay, there have been a few times where he was completely turned off by the way the food looked.
Yeah,
they go to taste it, and he's like, I'm not even gonna lie. He said, this is surprisingly delicious. Because the way it looked gave a whole different presentation to the flavor of the food.
Right.
The way the dish looked, it looked disgusting, or it looked like it was inedible, or it looked like it was gonna not taste good. But when he put it in his mouth, it was like heaven. He was delightfully surprised of how good it tasted in comparison to how it looked. Right. And for a lot of us, again, we don't really recognize that in most situations, when a first impression is established, there may not be a loop around or a circling of the block in order to give you the benefit of the doubt. Most people will make a first impression and move on from there.
And move on. Yeah, make their choice right there.
They will make a choice right there from the jump on how they're going to treat you based off of how you present yourself. So you have to be mindful of things like nonverbal cues, nonverbal communication, such as, how you're standing, certain gestures that you're doing, even how close you are to other people, or even verbal things like the words that your word selection, the words that you use, because your particular word usage or word selection can communicate certain thoughts, feelings, or opinions that you may not have really meant to communicate. And I've had that conversation with certain coworkers where I've had to explain to people, like, you have to understand this right here. Like one of my friends, she's a school teacher. And so her and another school teacher get into it about something. And so the other school teacher went and reported her and said that, she was being belligerent and aggressive. And so she's like, I promise you, I was not being belligerent and aggressive. But like I had to explain to her, you have to understand that how we as African Americans talk to each other,
right? And
we may not view it as aggressive or belligerent because that's how we talk to each other. Someone who is not us will interpret it a different way.
Real quick, especially if they're a bystander or they're just looking on or they're listening. I've had clients tell me that there is some anxiety associated with a group of Black people talking, and the young lady who presented this to me, she said they looked like they were probably having a intense conversation at first glance, but then the closer she got, because it was a little high pitched, it was a little louder, and some of the cadence and tone and tact seemed like there was almost an argument. When she got closer, they were laughing.
Yeah.
They were having a good time. You know, those of you who've been around West Africans, they get loud. Been around, if you ever go to Italy, hang around some Italians, they get loud, boisterous, right? But because African Americans have this negative stigma, you know what I mean? Our presentation is everything. Because we come in there and we just me and RJ could be having a grand old time laughing about something that, because we've had experiences together, and people think we're arguing.
Yeah, people, everybody good?
Y'all all right?
Y'all all right? Good in here? And I mean, he's absolutely right. And that's where, like I had to explain to her, you have to be mindful. And Khalil alluded to that. You have to be mindful of, certain things. You got to be very aware and present and cognizant of what is going on around you, who's around you, who you're talking to, how you're talking to them, just different things. Because again, the presentation of what you are saying is being overshadowed by how you were saying it, or what is being associated with, how you're communicating, such as how close you are to the other person. This is where, again, as I said, presentation matters. If you are a person that is always respectful, always kind, always honest, always steadfast with morals and character and values, people are more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt. If something was to pop off that was not aligned with that, people are more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt. Something comes up missing, they're going to be like, nah, he ain't do that. RJ don't move like that. People are willing to give you that benefit of the doubt, versus when you're always into shit all the time, or you're always doing shit, or your name's always attached to bullshit, people are less likely to give you that benefit of the doubt.
Right.
People are more likely to say you did that without having all the facts.
Without even having all the facts, right?
Without even having all the facts. You are guilty until proven innocent at that point.
Right.
And that's where, as I said before, presenting yourself and viewing yourself as a brand where my name cannot be attached to anything negative or bullshit. Like, there have been several coworkers that I've worked with where they tried me. And, in that regard, like I've had to tell people, you're not going to play with my name. You can play with everything else, but you cannot play with my name. You will not play with my name. I will die about my name, and I will die about my respect. Mm-hmm. You will not play with my name, because my name is synonymous with greatness, excellence, character, values, morals. You will not play with my name.
Right. Your name and your word is all you have.
Exactly. And so especially as a man.
Yeah, as a man, that's
especially especially as a man, your name is all you have. Your name and your word is all you have. So you're not going to play with my name. You're not going to play with my name. You're not going to attach my name to bullshit. And so because I draw that line at what my name is attached to, I never find myself in the middle of no bullshit.
Right.
People know not to even bring it to me. People start trying to be messy. Guess what? People go the other way, because I'm not about to partake in it. Right. I'm not about to get into it. I'm not about to partake in it. People know, because the thing about it though is how you present yourself and your reputation will precede you and follow you.
Right.
And so there will be certain situations you will find yourself in. Because for me, me personally, there have been certain situations I found myself in professionally because word of mouth is RJ's thorough. Word of mouth is RJ will see things through. Word of mouth is RJ will get it done. So people will give me opportunities that I've never even met before because they know someone else who knows me. Exactly. And because my presentation, my face card is always clean and it's bulletproof, people are like, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure you got this. But again, if I was one of those people that was always jugging and finessing, doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing, fucking up, screwing things up, guess what? People are like, nah, we ain't even willing to give nobody a chance. We can't get that guy right there. We can't give him a chance. Get out of here.
Right. Well, that speaks to what I was saying earlier. This is when it comes to your brand, it comes to making money. Let's just be open and let's be transparent. When it comes to making money, when it comes to your name, your brand, right? You see what they're doing with the college players, right?
Oh,
name and likeness, right?
Yep, absolutely.
that brand. And so they're starting earlier than what they used to. Because remember, back in the day, a lot of college players do a lot of dumb stuff and get away with it. They even showed that in the Aaron Hernandez documentary, right? You get away with a lot of stuff when you're younger before the NIL, right? Jameis Winston got away with some silly stuff when he was younger with the NIL, Cam Newton, all that. With the NIL, you can't do some of the stuff you used to do. Those kids used to get away with murder. Let's just use that. I don't want to use it as a pun, but let's just say they get away with murder, right? And the schools would protect them and all that because, hey, guess what? We weren't paying you. Now that they're paying you and there's money coming your way, because they were paying you before, but they were doing it under the table. Now that they're doing it right in front of everybody, your name has to be clear when it comes to any drama. You do not want to put your name out there because it will cut you off from making any more money in the NFL, other places. And even if the NFL takes a chance at you, they take a flyer, right? They say, hey, I'm going to take a chance on you. The first thing you do that just might, got them. First thing you do that might be just a little bit funny, they're going to put your name and they're going to drag it through the mud. They're going to put it in. Well, yeah, you've seen them in college doing it, and that's what I was telling you. It's a dog eat dog world. You don't have the same chances a lot of other people have if your name is already mud.
Yeah. I mean, you saw that with Ocho Cinco when he was playing with, what was that? Was it the Miami Dolphins?
He went because Ocho went from the Bengals to, was it the Dolphins?
I know they were. I believe they were on Hard Knocks.
I think he went to New England too at one time.
Yeah, but that last team that he was playing for, they had him on a 1-year prove it deal.
Right.
And they typically put players on a prove it deal when they've either started to decline or they've shown themselves to be very problematic. Where, because you saw that with Antonio Brown, where pretty much every team he ended up on, there was always some problem, there was always some issue, there was always some drama that was surrounding him. When he left Pittsburgh and he went to the Raiders, then from the Raiders to the Buccaneers, and it took Tom Brady vouching for him.
Vouching for him, right.
In order for him to get on to, for them to even give him an opportunity. They win that Super Bowl. They then extend him even further for him to then do what he did. And then now you make your homeboy who put his name out there on the line for you look bad. And that's where, like for me, and I've had this conversation with a few of my employees. You can't vouch for everybody, because a lot of people will make you look bad. And so they'll come, because being a manager, what'll happen is, hey, my friend or my homeboy or my homegirl, my brother, my sister, my cousin, they need a job. Can you, I see that we got openings. Can you get them in? And then you get them in, and then they come to work, and when they want to, they come to work, and they're not doing the things they're supposed to do. They come to work, and you're having to reprimand, like what they're wearing. Hey, this is a professional environment. Why are we wearing clothes that have holes in them? Why are we wearing clothes that got a stain on them? Why are we wearing clothes that's so tight I can see your heart beating through it? Or you wearing pants that's so tight I can see the blood pumping through your veins. Like, it's stuff like that where it's just like, but then the person that vouched for him, now you look some kind of way because you put your name on the line for it. And
no more referrals after that.
Yeah, and that's where like I've had to tell people, you have to protect your reputation. Like you would protect your credit score, like you protect your life. The same way you wouldn't give everybody your personal information to be able to go buy a boat or a yacht or a house in your name or get a car in your name and not pay and run the checkup and not pay the bill. You need to protect your reputation the same way. Your reputation, again, is going to precede you and it is going to follow you. And for a lot of us, because we don't have that guidance, we don't have the people like my mom who tell me, act like you've been there before. Because when you act like you've been there before, you dress like you've been there before, you talk like you've been there before, you walk like you've been there before, you're more likely to stay there. Versus when you act like you've never been someplace before, talk like you've never been someplace before, walk like you've never been someplace before.
People know you ain't been there.
People know you haven't been there. And guess what? You're not going to be able to stay there very long, because what you cannot do is you cannot come into an established product, an established entity, an established ecosystem doing what you want to do and expecting the ecosystem or the product to adapt to you. That's not how that works. What happens, basic principle of Darwinism,
Yep, right.
those who fail to adapt and evolve with their environment, the environment slowly starts to make you extinct.
They kill you off.
And so for a lot of us, we will make ourselves extinct and eliminate ourselves from certain conversations, certain opportunities, certain positions, certain pathways, certain doors close in our face, block certain blessings, because we're not too concerned about our presentation. We just want to show up any kind of way, act any kind of way, carry on any kind of way, be any kind of way, and not truly understand what that really means. We don't understand first, second, third order effects. And that was something that I had to learn as I got older. When I was younger, like a lot of the things that, I share on this podcast, my parents poured into me as a child. As a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, even still as an adult. My parents constantly are pouring things into me, right? And so when I was younger, I didn't understand those things. It's like, oh my God, my parents are crazy. My parents doing too much. Oh my God, y'all, why are you guys doing so much with the least? But what I had to realize was they were trying to teach me from their mistakes, the things that failed for them, because they wanted better for me. And so by understanding that, by being humble and being willing to receive the lessons that they're pouring into me, guess what? I didn't have the same problems that they had. I didn't have the same hiccups that they had. I didn't have the same struggles, the same trials and tribulations that they had. And one of those things was, again, presentation mattering. Understanding that people are going to view you, treat you, and handle you based off of what you presenting yourself as. So for me, as a African American male, I understand that people are automatically going to view me based off of looking at me. They're going to look at me and I can see it. Now, people will try to clear it up and try to class it up and, oh, I don't see color. Stop it. And I have to tell people that all the time. Stop. You can clearly tell that I'm African American.
Right.
The more appropriate thing is not to say that I don't see color, because you can clearly, unless you're blind, you can see that I'm African American. Now, how you see me does not have to coincide with how you treat me. So just because you see me as African American doesn't mean that you have to feed into the stereotypes by believing that me as an African American male is dangerous.
Right.
Is always up to no good. Is always looking to rob, steal, and kill. Is trying to not
deviant,
trying to be, just a sexual deviant, or, trying to, be jugging and finessing and not doing the things I'm supposed to do. But again, part of that is on me as a brand ambassador.
Yeah.
Because I had this conversation with, my brother and my younger sister, where you don't just represent yourself. You represent other people that look like us, that talk like us, that are from the same places as us. So when we present out in public, when we step outside this house, we're going to present like we somebody.
Yeah.
So when you present as somebody, guess what? Someone who does not know any African American people past good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hey, I know this person as a work acquaintance.
Your presentation is their only experience.
Exactly. Your presentation is their only experience. And with my presentation, guess what? They now have a frame of reference that, hey, I can interact with an African American person. I have to worry about, fearing for my life.
Right.
Because that's what society has shown, is that, hey, there's certain stereotypes that are associated with us. And I mean, to me, we got to be honest about that. There are certain stereotypes that are associated with people of color.
Yeah.
And so with those stereotypes, with those certain stereotypes being associated with us as people of color, our presentation matters. Like, it exceedingly matters, because we have to understand that some of those stereotypes will cause us to lose our lives.
Right.
And so how you present yourself to the public as a whole, to the world around you, can mean the difference between you staying alive and you losing your life.
Yeah.
In certain situations.
The growth, things have, come on, man, things have changed in the last 50 years. And, I really want to commend a lot of the leaders, especially some of the African American leaders and non-African American leaders. We talked about Bernie Sanders being a champion for
Mm-hmm.
social justice and equal white rights and everything else. But I want you all to know, even with this growth that we've had, especially when it comes to African Americans and people in general, right? Minorities in general, right? Uh, there's still stigmas attached to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, of course, we have two African American males, so we're gonna talk about some Black folks, right? But I'm gonna talk about collectively as a whole, right? There's bias.
Mm-hmm.
There's bias. We got biases against Chinese people, Russian people, uh,
Hispanic
um,
people.
Hispanic people, Middle Eastern people. We have that as a culture. Everybody has it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is important for all people, not just people of color, to come in and present yourself properly and act as if you know how and if you've been here before, like we said earlier, right? Because when we look at it, and I know we want to stay present, we want to be in the moment, but if some of the things that I'm doing in the moment, presently, right, those will affect how people see you later on. And it's a hard thing to do, right? Once you've already cast a certain type of image on yourself
Mm-hmm.
and people like yourself.
Yep.
You know what I mean? One of the things that I'm very thankful of, because my mother, she did her best to provide, is she put us in an area where it was multicultural, right outside of Washington D.C. And it was a blessing because I was just talking to a friend of mine about that. Growing up, I had some Asian people in my school, some Hispanic people, I had Jewish, I had Iranian, I had a good mixture of people to be able to talk with. And the way I grew up, I didn't have that in the beginning. I lived in a neighborhood that was predominantly African American, College Park, Prince George's County, and we stayed there till I was almost 11 years old. And when I moved and I got to meet some of these different people from different places, it enlightened me. It
Mm-hmm.
opened up a whole new world to me. And the people who presented negative to me, right, it stuck with me. I still have a bias right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because there were certain people, and I was like, man, why are they treating me like that? But now, of course, being older, I started to see, hey, I might not have always presented myself in the right way. You know what I mean? I might not have always, made my name all right, synonymous with greatness, like RJ said earlier, right? And so, looking back at that now, I know how important it is, and having a mother that wanted to push me for academics and to do things that were, that would better my life. I started to see, well, some of the reasons why I didn't succeed in certain areas, it was my presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take certain jobs serious. I didn't take certain schools I went to seriously, right? I wanted to do, medical work since I was 15, 16. I like the medical field, right? I'm in it now, but I wasn't in it when I went to school. I didn't do that. I dropped out of school. I did other things, right? Um, and now, of course, I'm doing what I've always wanted to do, which shows that God has grace and mercy. But my transition to get there was because I did not present myself in the right way when I was put in situations where I could have been successful. Right? I didn't take advantage of those opportunities. And for the younger people watching this show, sometimes we turn our nose up at certain stuff, internships, right? Chances at higher education. We turn our nose up because, man, I don't want to be around people who don't look like me. I don't really like that job. It's a whole bunch of folks that don't look like me, right? That internal bias. A lot of times that kept me from doing things that would have raised the bar for me, put me on another level, because I've never been a person who couldn't get along with anybody. That's not my personality, right? But I did not take advantage of being put in those spaces to be successful. And I think that's what RJ, you were getting to, is when we have that opportunity and we're put in front of some people who might not get around our kind of people too often, right? How are you presenting yourself? Are you trustworthy? Do you have a good character, integrity? You
Mm-hmm.
have those things that people admire. We know people admire money, right? But also people who are have some sense. We admire character traits.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Absolutely. Because money ain't everything.
money and everything.
It's
People
not.
talk about that with Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
The characters, charisma, a lot of the stuff that made him attractive, and some of the leadership qualities he had is what pushed him into office.
Absolutely.
You know? In his name, he wasn't associated with any crazy type, just a whole bunch of negative imagery in people's minds, right? And it propelled him into the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A lot of people just take that for granted. They really don't know how much that impacts their future. But that's what it is. People ain't
Absolutely.
worried about how much money you got, man. When it comes to them putting trust in you, all right, that they might not put. I'm telling you, I don't care what you do for a living. People won't trust you. They might say, "Hey, he's got a lot of money, but I'm not sure if I can trust him."
Mm-hmm.
Well, that has to do with your presentation.
Absolutely. I mean, I like what you said about the growth piece. Every day, and I tell people this all the time, every day is an opportunity to start over fresh. Yes, you kind of put yourself in a hole when you are not leading and creating and establishing a great first impression.
Right.
But you can always show people that who you were yesterday is not who you are today.
Exactly.
And who you were, who you're going to be the day after that and the day after that and the day after that. A lot of times, again, a lot of times what happens is that we will sometimes not really realize that and be retrospective and think back on what we could have done better, what we should have done better, and then actually apply it. And that's where I think that for a lot of us, where we have to have that good mentorship, that good guidance. If you don't have that guidance around you, you are dooming yourself. You are dooming yourself. If you don't have it, go out and find it. Go out and seek it. Get connected with someone who can mentor and can guide you into being the best version of yourself. Because I listened to Amen Thompson and his brother, and and they were like when they got drafted, him and his twin brother got drafted, and his parents were big on visualization, big on certain things that were going to pour into their children being a good representation and a good presentation of who they were as people. Because like you'll hear people talk about money, but then you'll never hear them say that this person is high in moral fiber. Like Khalil and I did an episode about being a high value man. In today's society, we view being a high value man as someone who has a job, who's got all this money, got all these resources, got all these assets. But then you never hear anybody talk about someone who has morals, who has values, who has integrity, who's honest, who's respectful, who's going to honor you as his woman, who's going to honor his family. If he has a child by you, you're not going to have to make him take care of his child. He's going to take care of his child. He's going to be fighting you to take care of his child. You never hear anybody talk about those things. But then also something that you never hear anybody talk about is the presentation piece of the person. How does a person present themselves to the world as a whole? Do they present themselves as someone with morals and values? Does the person present themselves as somebody who's just a hoogabug and just always doing shit they ain't got no business doing? Like, you never hear anybody talk about those things. But again, mentorship and guidance is key to somebody being successful, because you cannot operate in a vacuum by yourself. You need people to sound things off of, to bounce ideas off of, to check you, when you're wrong and tell you, hey, yo, you tripping. We ain't doing it. And this is why we ain't doing it. Because at the end of the day, for me as a provider, I am only as successful as the team I have around me. I don't surround myself with bums on the bench. I surround myself with all-star players. Anybody on this team can lead this team to a championship and get us the ring. I don't surround myself with somebody that's off the practice squad, because somebody's off the practice squad. We're not operating at the right levels. And because we're not operating at the right levels, like the saying goes, iron sharpens iron. Like, I need other people that are going to help me sharpen my blades and keep me sharp and keep me going in the right direction. And so for me, I've had parents, I've had people outside of, my familial circles, be willing to pour into me because of the fact that I present myself a certain way. I present myself as humble, present myself as somebody that's willing to learn, somebody that's willing to receive knowledge. And so because I present myself as someone who's willing to learn, willing to receive knowledge, humble enough to sit before you, chase you to get the knowledge. People won't, I don't even have to chase people anymore. People will bring the knowledge to me. People will look out for me because they know that I can trust that he's going to do what he's supposed to do. And that's where, as I said before, when it comes to presentation, I cannot espouse enough that the way you present yourself is going to either make certain opportunities come alive in your life, or it's going to kill certain opportunities in your life. As you can see with this whole thing with Joy Taylor and Skip Bayless and the other executive and these other people, like, it's certain things you don't want your name attached to because it's a career ender. It completely nuclear fallout, especially, in the past, we'll say 10 years, with the Me Too and Time's Up movement and everything that's come along with that. There's certain things you do not want your name attached to.
Right.
Because your career will be over with. Your career is over with. Your life is over with. So it would behoove you to not even have your name attached to certain things. That's where, for me, I'm very aware and I'm very cognizant as a man of how close I am in relation to another person, the things that I say, the things that I do, because the way it was explained to me and the way it was always taught to me is it's not what you were intending to happen, it's how the other person perceived it to happen. And a person's perception is their reality. So if a person perceives that you were coming on to them, person perceives that you were being inappropriate, or you touched them in a certain way that you shouldn't have, or you took certain liberties, or you said things that were out of line, guess what? Then chances are that's how they perceived it. That's in their reality. Exactly. But the thing is, as I said before, if you're not putting yourself in those certain situations, you're not attaching yourself to certain things, you never have to worry about ever having to battle against anything like that. You're never having to explain that's not what I did. I didn't do that. You don't find yourself even being brought up in certain conversations because you're not being associated with certain behaviors or certain things. And I think that for a lot of us, we don't think that far ahead. We don't think first, second, third order effects. What we tend to do is we tend to think in the moment. We tend to think right now and only right now, and not thinking and not being predictive of where this could go. And I have that conversation with my employees all the time. It's part of being a supervisor, and I tell them that all the time. Like, as your supervisor, my job is talent, not only just talent management, but talent and resource management, but developing you as an employee, because you ain't always going to be right here all the time. Now, hey, if you want to, hey, more power to you. Who am I to tell you not to stay here? But if you are going to eventually leave here, which should be everyone's goals, to eventually grow and grow out of the place that they're in, out of the flower pot that they find themselves in. Mm-hmm. If you are going to grow and grow out of this flower pot, I need to pour into you to ensure that when you grow from here, that you're able to be successful at the next location that you go to. So that's telling people, hey, that's not a good look. And this is why that's not a good look. Hey, we got to move a little bit differently. The way you're carrying yourself is making you look a certain way. I've had that conversation, not just with employees, but I've had that conversation with the supervisor before, where I'm like, listen, my guy, that looks some kind of way. What you mean? That employee right there, the way she's acting right now, because prime example, we were having a staff meeting. So we're having a staff meeting, and this was right after National Bosses Day. So this is right after National Bosses Day. So right after National Bosses Day, we're having the staff meeting. And so one of the employees had gotten our supervisor, I guess, like lunch or something for National Bosses Day or whatever. And so because he didn't make it into a grand gesture of thanks for the lunch, she was in her feelings about it.
Wow.
And I mean, she was going for like a good 15 minutes.
Wow.
She was like, we're in there, and she he kind of, briefly said thanks about it. And I mean, she just like exploded. And I mean, it wasn't like super, it wasn't like aggressive or anything, but she just was like, you could tell she was in her feelings about it. And so me and one of the other staff members, we're older. I'm like, we kind of pulled him to the side. I'm like, bro, I don't know what's going on, but that right there, that looks some kind of way. He's like, what you mean? I said, her feelings was really hurt. Her feelings was like, that's how it came across, was her feelings was really hurt. Like, you could clearly tell, like, how emotional she was getting about it. Like, her feelings was really hurt by the fact that he didn't make this into like this grand proclamation of things. And like I explained to him, that looks like there may be something going on. Now, I don't know if it is or not, but for her to get that bent out of shape, for her to get that bent out of shape over a chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A, like, either that was
something deeper going on.
Either that was her last little bit of money that she spent on that chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A, or y'all got something going on and she thought it was really going to be something that she bought you lunch. Right. So he claims that oh, ain't nothing going on. I say, hey, may not be anything going on, but I'm telling you, the way that the perception of it is, there's something weird going on there. Right. Because it was in it, and it, because I'm a person, I will think back on past interactions, past conversations. So it made me start, because before I even said anything to him, I started thinking, like, because while we're sitting there, she's going, I'm like, has she always been like this? Is she always acting like this?
Right. Is this something? Is this an anomaly? Or
is this something like brand new? And then I'm like, it's been past times where it's something similar like this, where she's kind of, gotten a little emotional about something that wasn't really that deep, but then she's made it deeper than what it really was. And I was just like, and that's what made me say something to him, like, hey, she don't need to be in your office by yourself. Right. Something happened, make sure that you have somebody else in here. Don't be going nowhere with her. She can't go nowhere with you. Don't do, because I'm telling you now. Yeah. Because it looks some kind of way. And with it looking some kind of way, it's going to come across some type of way, and you don't want to have your name attached to that.
Right. Well, we always talk about boundaries on this show, right? Unique is famous at teaching people how to set appropriate boundaries, right? But one of the things that I think this falls in this category when we're talking about our name, our brand, our image, the things that we're trying to protect, right? There's certain boundaries that you should have out of respect for other people and out of respect for yourself. I know there's certain things I can't do anymore as a married man, right? And this goes to this alludes to a lot of the stuff we talked about prior with some of the things that you hear on ESPN and some of the stuff that we heard, the speculations and all that other stuff, right? Because we don't know if any of that's true, but the things that we do know are true, right, is when married people and people who aren't married, right, don't have proper boundaries, that's when you start to see violations start happening. Yep. I never knew how serious that was until I got in the psychology social work field. I never knew, like RJ always talks about it, we think our parents are crazy. I used to think my mother was crazy because she had all these crazy ways of trying to teach me boundaries. All right, you see what happened in that incident? If you hadn't done this, and next time you have that situation, you shouldn't be doing that. And I mean, like, she would always have these boundaries about touching people, being too close to people, staying out too late over here and there. And I used to think she was crazy because I was like, man, my mom's obsessed with keeping these certain boundaries and having these rules for everything, right? And the older I got, I saw what she was trying to teach me. And the thing that it hurts me the most of being in this field, people who do not have boundaries or who were not taught boundaries, right, fall into a few categories. Either they didn't have proper parenting, or they had parenting that was either the parent enabled them too much, or they had some type of enmeshment going on, right? And that's when I always tell people the other thing is obviously molestation and other things like incest, all that stuff that goes on in the household. Those fit in those categories, right? And the longer you're in this industry that myself and RJ are in, you start seeing adults who have no boundaries and what happened to them in the past to make them think it was okay to not or to do or to not do something, right? You start looking at their boundaries and their history of these blurred lines where So they were always overstepping boundaries, always pushing the limit, and they could care less about what happened to them or the other person. And so when we start talking about some of these things that people have claimed other people have done, right? If you have boundaries and you know what not to do in certain situations, you're not going to get thrown in those types of accusations.
Yeah,
Your
you won't.
name won't even be brought into it
You
because
you
people know
won't.
you
You
keep
won't.
firm boundaries.
Exactly. You will not have that foolishness associated with your name, and that's where, as I said before, like when it comes to viewing yourself as that brand, you gotta move and operate like you are $1 billion business.
Mm-hmm.
And I will distance myself with the quickness. Like I tell my people all the time, if I have gangrene in this finger, in order to save
Chopping
my
it off.
entire hand, I will chop it off without a
Right.
second thought.
Gotta go.
It's coming right off. And the reason why is because, again, I have to protect the entire body because gangrene spreads. It goes from this finger to this finger. Next thing you know, the hand, the arm. Next thing you know, I'm septic at that point. No. In order to thrive, in order to be successful, I have to view myself as a brand. My personal brand has to be associated with certain things.
Right.
By viewing myself and viewing myself and operating as a brand, $1 billion brand, guess what? I will move, I will operate, I will think, I will do the things necessary to not have my name associated with negativity and foolishness. But
Right.
again, this is something that was taught to me. This was something that I had to learn. For our younger audience, if you don't get anything else from this episode, surround yourself with good mentorship. Surround yourself with people who can guide you. Surround yourself with people who are going to pour into you so that you do not find yourself in situations that you have to explain this ain't what it looked like.
Right.
That's not what had happened. This isn't what I had meant to happen. This is not what I meant when I said that. You know, for me, again, mentorship guidance is a key thing in regards to developing you as a young professional, as a young adult. Because again, we don't stay children forever. Because we don't stay children forever, we have to, at some point, either choose to make better decisions or choose to live chaotically and live, in calamity and just disrepair and disorganization all the time. And for me as a therapist, as a provider, I choose to kind of, try to help people as I can. But again, presentation has to matter. How you present yourself is going to impact how the world views you, how they see you, how they think about you, how they talk about you, if they're going to help you or not, if they're going to, close certain doors, open certain doors, throw you a lifeline, give you a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. All of those things are impacted by the way you present yourself. Now, as I said before, each day is a new day, is an opportunity to start over fresh. And you can, through your actions, because your actions speak louder than words, will always speak louder than words. You can show people through your actions and through your consistency that who they thought you were is not truly who you are.
Right.
And so you are able to change a person's perception of you by working hard, being consistent, and doing the work. And that's, again, and that goes for all of us, even as adults, because some of us will get into this thought process of this is just who I am. You just got to accept me. Newsflash, people, that's not how the world works. People can just not accept you, and then you're just out there operating by yourself. And life is way more difficult when you're having to struggle and you're having to get it out the mud by yourself.
Yeah.
So we're going to end the conversation here. This is Try Not to Overthink It signing out. I'm RJ.
And I'm Khalil.
If you like what you heard, you like what you saw, we ask that you like, share, subscribe, turn your notifications on because you do not want to miss any content that we drop. We are some very good looking people, so, please check us out on YouTube at Try Not to Overthink It. If you would like to listen to the episode instead of watch it, I don't know why you would, because we are some very good looking people. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Audible, pretty much anywhere you can get your audio file, we can be listened to. If you would like to support us even further, please check us out on, for the shorts, for the mindfulness minutes, as well as Instagram and TikTok. But this is us signing out.
TikTok.
Well, not TikTok anymore. Apparently, it's banned right now. But we're gonna see if it opens back up. But the links will be down in the description below. But this is us signing out, and we will catch you next time. Peace.